have worked out, come back, showered, taken my vitamins, already had 2 coffees, need another one, but not willing to go out in the cold. Today we have 2 readings, 2 calls that are just normal Astrace related, 2 calls that definitely dictate the future of Astrace. Then I have an eyelash extension appointment, and then I have to pack for LA. So that is the Wednesday. Sunset time before I head out for eyelash extensions. So hopefully when I come back, I do not look like a naked mole rat, and I can be as beautiful as the view. I can become the view. Lashes are done and skincare is done, so you can just see the whole like nighttime look. I go to NYC Lash Bar in New York. I stopped going to them briefly because they kept giving me very natural looking lashes, but I just like really hammered home. Please, volume, cat eye, 16 millimeter at the ends. We understood today, we're back. This is like, I'd say that like this studio is the best that I've been to overall in terms of like it stays, like these lashes stay very well. It was just a couple times they were too natural, but we're back on that. And they have a little like punch card thing, which just feels very rewarding. Anyway, I had the idea because of a couple videos I made to talk about essential dignity in astrology. So I made a video about the most powerful Mars signs, the most powerful Venus signs. By powerful, I was really referring to essential dignity. And I can do a full video explaining why these things are the way they are. That's just going to be a redundant, boring video, frankly, because the history and like the theory, it's cool to know, and then it's like sayonara. I don't want to. I'm just someone where like I find it interesting to nerd out about things. I don't need to retain the specific theory and the historical background. I don't really give an emotional shit. What I give a shit about is like having fun and using things to help my life. And that is where essential dignity does come into play, because this is how you analyze planetary condition. This is literally the basis. This is the foundation for reading a chart and being able to delineate positive, negative challenges and the specific quality of an area of life. This is like objective, energetic, positive challenges. This is not the time for nuance of like, oh, but yeah, the best possible alignment comes with pride. Like, this is just straight cut. This is how you like actually fucking analyze. This is not footnotes astrology, basically. The essential dignity scheme analyzes how a planet in a sign can either have positive, no, or negative dignity, basically. Is it getting helped out a lot? Is it indifferent? Or is it being at a disadvantage? There are 2 situations of dignity and 2 situations of debility, you could say. So the first scheme is the exaltation or fall scheme. Planets are exalted when they are lifted up royally because they are very well placed, both in the theory of the technical side and the literal resonance of that planet in a sign. So the sun is exalted in Aries. The sun is our ego. It does very well blasting forward in Aries, not thinking twice, being impulsive, courageous, etc. The moon is exalted in Taurus. The moon is our emotional nature and the inner world. Taurus is fixed earth, meaning it is very solid, very stable, and very can handle a lot, has a lot of fortitude. Mercury is exalted in Virgo. It's also at home in Virgo, and if you look at the origins of the scheme, Mercury essentially had to be both exalted and at home in Virgo. There was no other place for it. So Mercury communication does very well in Virgo, where it is precise, eloquent, to the point, and not extraneous. Venus is exalted in Pisces, where it shows unconditional love and acceptance, free-flowing creativity, and not putting constraints on values. Mars is exalted in Capricorn, where Mars is aggression, maybe violence, maybe just strong will, can be put towards climbing a ladder of achievement rather than going crazy or misdirecting itself. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer because Jupiter is positivity or growth, and Cancer defends what is valuable. So it's a lot about like expanding that which is fuzzy, warm to the core, having some boundary there. Cancer's a little bit more of a boundary than Pisces, but definitely shows the growth of protecting what is valuable, and it's really well suited. Saturn is exalted in Libra, Saturn being the planet of challenge and boundary, and Libra can be very judicial and draw boundaries towards fairness or easing conflict. Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are outer planets and therefore not exalted in any specific sign, according to the astrology that I definitely follow. Being in a sign of exaltation shows being lifted up royally and well supported by your surroundings. It definitely represents privilege, and I don't mean that in some woke BS demeaning way. I mean it like literally you fucking got, like, good job. Like, you got a really cool hand dealt there. So that is one case of dignity. Having a planet exalted shows that it is lifted up royally. That's the way I like to describe it. It's not inherent that, like, you were just really comfortable in that area of life. It's just like it got handed to you and it worked out really well and you got dealt a really awesome hand. Can show, of course, pride and other people being jealous of you. I don't see that as an issue. I see that as their problem. So I don't see, like, people who are like, there's a lot of downsides to having an exalted planet. I was like, no, there's really not. In and of itself, there is not. The downside can come from challenging aspects or challenging house, which is a footnote factor to what I'm focusing on in this video. The opposite of exaltation is being in its fall. So if it's not exalted up high, it's fallen down low. Being in its fall is the most challenging placement by sign and generally shows a disadvantage or a lack of resources to start out in that area of life. Of course, we can always turn our greatest challenges into our greatest underdog story. Of course, you can definitely fall in love with your fallen planet and be like, I overcame that shit. And of course, there can be mitigating factors in your chart that show that a fallen planet is in a great other condition and there's a complicated story of both challenge and win there. So I'm not talking about a prescriptive, like, you are less valuable, you suck because of this. This is literally just like delineating objectively, sometimes shit sucks. So the sun is fallen in Libra, because if the sun is us and you're having your ego go through considering everyone else's point of view, that's kind of like, that's a disadvantage. It's not bad. I fucking love Libras, okay? Carry on, we get it. The moon is fallen in Scorpio, because if the moon is our emotional nature and Scorpio is volatility and in extremes, that's a little bit more challenging up and down. Mercury is fallen in Pisces, because Mercury is precision of word and communication, and Pisces is bleh, like all over the place. It can be beautiful, but bleh. Venus is fallen in Virgo, so opposite, because Venus is value and harmony, and Virgo is like critical, discriminatory, meticulous. It's a little bit paradoxical combination. Mars is fallen in Cancer, because Mars is action and aggression, and Cancer is about emotional protection and around wanting to just like be safe and cuddle. So Mars and Cancer can be like passive aggressive or just indirect in the way that they get things done. Jupiter is fallen in Capricorn, because Jupiter is like positive, yay, here we go, and Capricorn's a sign of fear, be realistic, like strategize. So it's often the growth of things that are around fear or having to, like, Jupiter in Capricorn can show the growth of something that requires a hell of a lot of work and struggle. And Saturn is fallen in Aries, because of Saturn's boundary, and Aries is like pew, 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 impulse, go, go, go. It's like, shit, I just did something really definite and I now regret it. And like, shit, I have a boundary, kind of this place that I put it, and I don't know if that was mature. So by no means is this a judgment. Like I said, I don't give a shit if you have an exalted or fallen planet. It means nothing about, like, I don't judge, whatever. It's simply showing the objective quality of that area of life of either being lifted up in like privilege or starting out at a disadvantage and having some initial trouble there in that area of your life. The second dignity scheme is a little bit simpler. It is the domicile scheme. So domicile is home. Every planet has a home sign that it rules. So the sun rules Leo, the moon rules Cancer, Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo, Venus rules Taurus and Libra, Mars rules Aries and Scorpio, Jupiter rules Pisces and Sagittarius, and Saturn rules Capricorn and Aquarius. Having a planet in its home sign is like chilling at your own house. You're comfortable, you don't have to depend on anyone, you are set and sustainable to go. So having a planet in its home sign shows being comfortable, being competent, and being like very solid in that area of life. You may ask the difference between exaltation and home sign. Sometimes someone's description would not differ. But if you look at the nuances, exaltation is usually more around like fame, fortune, privilege, and a home sign is more about that is a really solid, really stable, successful area of your life. Often in ancient texts, it did specify that home sign of domicile was slightly preferable to exaltation. Take fucking either, they're both great, but having a planet in its home sign is a little more stable, I would say. Alternatively, having a planet opposite to the sign that it rules means that it is in a foreign country, so to speak, or in its exile or antithesis. I like to say, like in a foreign country, I think it's a really great metaphor. I believe Ben Dykes was the person that I heard this from like a decade ago, and it just really works because it is not the same level of challenge as a planet in its fall. Having a planet in its exile is not the same as having a planet in its fall. Having a planet in its exile is like being in a foreign country where shit's weird, it's a little bit paradoxical and uncomfortable, and it's a little bit unconventional, or a lot unconventional. So this shows being uncomfortable or unconventional, not struggling, like having other things can show that you're struggling, but this in and of itself does not show struggle to the degree of fall. It shows discomfort and being out of the norm. So the sun is fallen in Aquarius, so the sun is in its exile in Aquarius because the sun is me, ego. Aquarius is like, let's think about everyone else. So that's the God complex, nonconformist God complex thing. The moon is in its exile in Capricorn because the moon is like, ooh woo, lovey-dovey, safe, and Capricorn is like hard work, suck it up. It's not the end of the world, challenging, it's just a little weird. Mercury is in its exile in Pisces, and this is the one where it's both fallen and in its exile. So Mercury and Pisces people, they're at a disadvantage and they're uncomfortable. But it's not bad. You can have a beautiful Mercury in Pisces, but like that's the double whammy one, and why Mercury in Virgo is exalted and in its home sign. Venus is in its exile in Scorpio, because like dark, intense, but also pretty. That's a little paradoxical. And in Aries, because it rules the opposite sign of Libra. And Venus in Aries is like the incredibly decisive, like you're cutting ties or drawing boundaries and being fierce to enact harmony. So it's a little bit paradoxical, like your way of enacting harmony is being through like really fucking independent and really fucking sharp. Mars is in its exile in Taurus because like Mars wants to get shit done and Taurus is on the couch, it's a little slow. And it is in its exile in Libra, which can be indecisive. It's kind of like you're acting in order to reduce conflict, which can be indecisive, but it can be beautiful, you know, both sides. Jupiter is in its exile in Gemini because Jupiter expands and Gemini is like detail. So it's like, let's argue about this huge thing. Let's miss the forest for the trees. And Jupiter is in its exile in Virgo for similar reasons, mostly about blowing small issues out of proportion, but also having a great eye for detail. So there's that. Then Saturn is in its exile in Leo. It rules Aquarius. So in Leo, it's like, I'm drawing all these boundaries and making decisions, but it's all about me. And like, it's a little bit like that. And then Saturn is also in its exile in Cancer because drawing boundaries based on like emotional feeling right now, which isn't too neutral. But these are not the same as fall. It doesn't mean that the outside world's at a disadvantage. It just means that your way of dealing with that area of your life is a little weird and paradoxical. So essential dignity is an objective way to help analyze the condition of a part of your chart. We will all have uneven hands dealt, so I cannot stress enough how impersonal to take analyses like this. This is what allows us to actually read a chart. This is what allows us to actually make conclusions. So this is like what I actually think is the most useful kind of thing in astrology. Once you understand rulership of planet signs, houses, which if you're new to that, I have all that linked below for like beginner videos. This helps you analyze the areas of life and helps you determine the strength of things in your chart. So I need to pack for LA because I'm going back tomorrow to do some really cool things over the next few weeks. But I will see you in that vlog.